I've got the performance version loaded in, and in this video we're going to take an overview look at the main window here and then focus in on the section setup over here. So we select the individual instruments or instrument combinations that we want to assemble the horn section in this section here. Now the maximum is 6. There's 4 slots, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we can have either single instruments or groups of 2, and you can have a maximum of 2 combinations along with 2 individual instruments, and that gives us our maximum total of 6. Right now we're looking at 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, so this section would have 5. We have the selection preset menu at the upper left, and this gives us a bunch of preset horn sections, and we'll look at some of those in a moment, and then we'll also look at building our own section up from scratch. Now we can determine a second articulation to be used via velocity switching down here, and this is the articulation view versus the animator view. So we turn that on and off with that button. So in articulation view, we set our main articulation there, and then we set which alternate articulation we want triggered from this menu over here, and then we set the velocity crossover point, the threshold over here. This is a default setting for now. Now we can use the voicing assistant over here to control how the individual notes are distributed among the instruments in the horn section here. And there's a couple of different modes, which of course we'll look at in more detail. For this video, I have a little part programmed up with just single lines, so there's no harmony notes, just single lines, and I'm going to leave it in smart voice split where it distributes it among the instrument based on range. And the instruments are loaded in from lowest to highest, so the choice of instruments in this slot are the lower range instruments, and then mid-range instruments, then the higher range instruments. So it distributes them from low to high, from left to right. And finally in this window we can set up and use the animator over here to play back pre-programmed phrases or just use their rhythms or our own chords, but we're not going to look at that for now. So with this in mind, let's go through some of the presets. This is the one that loads in with the default performance. I'm going to play this little region here, and you'll hear it with this default sound with the unison or single note line spread out using smart voice split. So we really hear that baritone down low, and I've started off in a low range and then worked up higher. Let's try a different section. Let's try 60s horns. So you see there's a large variety of presets here that call up some nicely defined and set up preset brass settings. But if we want to create our own from scratch, let's look at loading instruments into each slot. Now I'm going to hit the click to load button, and I'm going to hit no instrument. That's how we clear the slots. So I'm going to clear each slot by doing that. I'm going to go click to load, no instrument, click to load, no instrument. Now bear in mind I have a monophonic line here using smart voice split. So let's start by loading in the lowest slot. And again, because this is the low range instruments, we're only going to get a subset of all the instruments that are available. Let's start with bass trombone, and we can hear our line now with just that instrument. By the way, those swells that you're hearing are the velocity switch over here, the forte piano, where it sort of starts loud and then does a quick sort of swell up. So let's set this one to be bass trombone. Now we can set the second instrument over here, and again the options change slightly. This one's already in use, but we have an alto here that wasn't there before, but let's choose a tenor for now. I think I chose the wrong one. Here it is, tenor saxophone. So on that very first note we still heard only the trombone. Now if I have this in polyphonic mode, every note is going to be played by every sound here. And it didn't change because that low note is out of the range of tenor saxophone. Just a little aside. But let's go back to building our section. On the third one, I'll put an alto sax. And maybe I'll put a trumpet up high here. Maybe a trumpet with a mute. So it's simple to set up your own brass ensemble like that by selecting the instruments in individual slots. And here we have 4 slots, 4 instruments. Now if we want some combinations, what we're going to do is go click to load, and then there's an alternate tab here for combi. So let's say in this low one, I can have bass trombone and tenor trombone together, or bass trombone and bari sax together. So let's switch that. So it's obviously a bigger section. Let's click this one, and this one is only allowing us individuals in this mode, but if we go to combi, we'll see here that we can get 2 together. I can get, let's say, 2 tenor saxes. So right now I'm building a kind of thicker low-end section, and I'll still leave the alto and trumpet here, but conversely I could go to combi, and they're not available right now because we're only allowed a maximum of 2 combis, and they're being used already in these 2. But this will be a lower kind of sound right now, thicker and lower and fuller. Now let's say I went back to single mode and I used my combis up high. We can get a different sound that way, different color. Let's go back to single over here, and I'll go to tenor sax, and then let's go up here and use combis in the upper registers. That one's already in use. Let's go to this slot, and I'll switch to combi mode here, and we have some combinations. Let's use 2 trumpets, so this will be a different color. So you see up high it featured more of the trumpets. So that's a little overview how to use the section setup area here. We can choose between the presets, or we can click in each individual slot and we can choose either single or combis to load into those slots for a maximum of 6 sounds altogether. This one happens to use 5. And if we go here, for example, I can go to a combi and have a nice full 6 instrument section now. But that's how we do it. We load them in there in either singles or combis, and they're spread out in range from lowest up to highest. We'll see you for more in the next video.